Continuing our review of World War I, National University CSET Social Science Test Prep. This is David Goyette. Again, reviewing World War I. Just finished up with the 21 demands with regard to Japan and China. Technology of World War I. World War I was the world's first truly modern war. New weapons revolutionized warfare. With the use of the machine guns, heavy artillery, combatants no longer charged onto the battlefield. Instead, new fighting techniques were developed. Trench warfare emerged. The resulting stalemate, neither side making significant advances, led to the development of more new weapons and strategies. Of course, we know of the no man's land areas between the Germans and French during the war, against the Allies and the Alliance. There was actually these areas that were entirely off limits. It was just an area full of shellings and bombings that if you crossed in that region, you were sitting duck, basically. So there's a lot of history there, a lot of footage you can find on the internet with regard to the trench warfare. Poison gas, grenades, first used by the Germans, were the great fear of soldiers in the trenches and necessitated the invention of gas masks. Although armored cars were used early in the war, by 1916 the British used tanks to advance against the German trenches. Aerial combat was first introduced during the war, but for the most part planes were used for reconnaissance, not for combat. Submarine warfare was the domain of the Germans, who used U-boats to destroy British naval ships. On the civilian front, Paris and other cities were bombed. The new technology was deadly. Estimates of the war dead go as high as 10 million. Continuing on, results of World War I. Cities throughout Europe were destroyed and millions were dead, injured, or homeless. Although some European nations, notably France and Great Britain, emerged the victors and retained imperial control over their vast empires, in reality, the significant increase in nationalist feelings throughout the colonial world was underway. Let me double check that here. In reality, the process of the process of decolonization was underway. Excuse me. Let me go back over that again. Although some European nations, notably France and Great Britain, emerged as the victors and retained imperial control over their vast empires, in reality, the process of decolonization was underway. And of course, we can think of the lands in places in Africa, in India, where colonial control is the grip of colonial control is being loosed. Following the war, there was a significant increase in nationalist feelings throughout the colonial world. The Ottoman, the Austro-Hungarian empires were broken up. The Allies met in Paris in 1919 to develop a peace plan. The most significant agreement was the Treaty of Versailles. This is the treaty that most historians, or many historians, contribute to greatly, leading to the causes of World War II, in that it put the blame for World War I squarely on the shoulders of Germany. And while Germany had much to do with it, it's often seen by historians as a shifting the blame too intensely onto one nation and causing it to be desperate, thereby leading to the people's willingness to elect a person such as Hitler. Because remember, this is the Weimar Republic, and while it may have not been a perfect democracy, it was a democracy that elected Hitler. And while Hitler was ruthless and eliminated his political opponents by ways that we would not call democratic, it was nonetheless a democratic process under which he was elected. And some historians feel that happened because obviously the German people began to buy into this idea of not only the Aryan race and racial superiority, but that if we could just get rid of this group of people, we could dominate not only our own economy and fix our own problems, we could conquer the world. So continuing on there, the Treaty of Versailles, negotiated between the Allies and Germany. The League of Nations was created in the hopes of avoiding future wars, although weakness in design would render it essentially powerless. President Woodrow Wilson, prompted the concept of self-determination, believing that if nations had the right to choose their own governments, peace would ensue. Not always the case, but you can't blame the guy for trying. It's a wonderful idea, and much like the Enlightenment philosophers' concepts of, favoring maybe direct democracy and representative democracy in all cases over tyranny or monarchy. We don't want to side with Hobbes and say that, hey, just let the monarch do his thing. Achieving the actual balance of a solid democratic state is often very difficult in a region where you don't have solid infrastructure and literacy and other things that you would require to have a galvanized public that isn't going to kill itself while it's creating its democracy. But all in all, Woodrow Wilson's ideas are well taken. Let's see, President Woodrow was prompted. The result of this concept was the development of the mandate system. Perhaps most significantly, World War I ended with many nations dissatisfied, and this sense of unhappiness would ultimately play a role in the rise of World War II. Again, I'm just going to cover World War I in this brief lecture. Let's go to the Paris Peace Conference. The Allied nations met in Paris in 1919 to settle peace terms with the Central Powers. 5 treaties in all were negotiated. The most significant of the treaties was Versailles between the Allies and Germany. I already talked about Versailles. Worth hitting again. Wilson proposed his 14 points, including an end to the secret alliances, the promotion of free trade, decolonization, self-determination, and the establishment of the League of Nations. The League of Nations, of course, another faulty, potentially faulty organization that will become one that's going to protract conflicts and allow Hitler to build his arsenal instead of curtailing it. Other Allied leaders, and most notably David Lloyd George of Britain and Clemenceau of France, sought to punish the losers, and particularly Germany. The negotiations resulted in an agreement on several significant terms being agreed upon. The League of Nations was created. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was broken up. New nations were created from the breakup of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, including Yugoslavia and Poland and the Ottoman Empire. And its lands were put under the mandate of the French and British. The peace established was unstable. Within a generation, a world war was once again on the horizon, and many pointed to the weakness of the Paris Peace Accords. Going to Treaty of Versailles, just a quick review of that. The peace settlement negotiated with the Allies with Germany at the end of World War I, focusing on ensuring that Germany would never again be a threat to the security of Europe. Again, placing the blame so firmly on Germany. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, they were very much an instigator. The problem was it created desperation in Germany itself. Terms included a war guilt clause in which Germany accepted complete responsibility for the war. I'll double check how it started. It wasn't entirely their fault. Significant loss of German territory, including Alsace-Lorraine, which was given to France. The establishment of the Rhineland, the border between France and Germany, as a demilitarized zone. And we can note that there's one, the DMZ that's most famous now, or demilitarized zone, that we would note in our current day, or modern day, would be the one between North Korea and South Korea. But moving on from DMZs for a second. It was forbidden to have any battleships, heavy artillery, or submarines in the DMZ. This peace plan was viewed by many as too harsh. In the years immediately following, Germany faced economic depression. I'm going to pause again here and wrap it up in my third and hopefully last address on World War I.